back, everybody, to this weekly edition of the Fight Club. We are here to do our pre-fight breakdown of UFC 278, Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman, but not before we do our recap of UFC Fight Night San Diego, featuring Marlon Vera and Dominic Cruz at the top of the card. And we will touch on some of the rest of the main card from that fight also before we jump into UFC 278, because that's a pretty stacked card, featuring Paulo Costa and Luke Rockhold, Jose Aldo, Dvalishvili, which we'll probably talk about a lot, and even some fun at heavyweight. But before we do that, welcome back, Brandon. Thank you for joining me.
Yes.
Listeners, if you're just tuning in, I'll keep on reminding you guys at the beginning, subscribe, like, comment, and ring the bell so you don't miss any of our content moving forward. Anyways, let's jump into this main card, Brandon. Dominic Cruz looked every bit as great as we expected him to, honestly. He looked awesome, but he still couldn't escape the first round without getting dropped. And he didn't necessarily look hurt, but he looked, but he was stumbled and he fell to his ass. But the speed was there, the movement was there, the volume was there. If anything, more so than we had seen it in the past, because my memory of how I remember Dominic Cruz fights playing out in the past was a lot of that movement, a lot of that volume, but not so much of the kick, not so much of the sting behind the punches. The later Dominic Cruz, later in his career, seems to really be putting on a lot more sting on his punches, and throwing with a lot more viciousness, I should say. But it just so happened that Marlon Vera's fight-changing power was the difference here. What did you think getting into the second round or getting past that first round? Did you kind of like start to see that things might play out differently from what we had predicted after that first knockdown of Dominic Cruz?
Oh, 100%. And it was a weird sinking feeling because we had both kind of ball-washed Dominic Cruz going into this, kind of not so much underplaying Vera, because we both knew he was dangerous and we gave him the respect, he deserved. But that first knockdown, because he came out, he was like, man, he's looking good, and then he was hitting those calf kicks.
Mm-hmm.
He was getting, he was kicking, he was moving around really well. He was slipping a lot. He had slipped. Cheeto threw some really good combos, or tried to put together some combos, and Dom slipped like more than a few, especially in that first round. But that knockdown, as soon as I saw that, I go, oh no, like that. There's nothing. That's it. That's just it. And how he got up from that first knockdown is a testament to him, because that looked rough. He went straight down. It wasn't like he kind of wobbled back and stumbled. He went straight down, face down into the fucking canvas, like right away. And it didn't seem like it was a super. There was a lot behind it, obviously, but it didn't look like he wound up. It didn't look like he necessarily timed it as well as he had some of the other shots that he had in that fight, especially the one that really that ended it. It just kind of seemed like it was just a quick cross, but Dom's reaction, he just dropped like a sack of shit, like real quick.
Yeah, and
it just felt, whoa, fuck, there's no chance, because what Dom was doing was not going to win that fight. There was nothing he was going to do that was going to win him that fight other than outpointing Cheeto, and there's no chance he was going to go through 5 rounds if he took 3 more shots like that and get out of that fight. There's no way.
Yeah, because that after you take one of those shots, you are a different fighter from that point forward. Right. It's like, and to be honest, I had faith. I think I might have even remembered texting you at some point after that first round that it was, to me, it was such a strong Dominic round that I was still very, very close to contemplating giving him the round, like scoring him the round for him,
right?
because
the official cards had him ahead, I think, until he lost.
It might have been. I wish I had him open in front of me, but I haven't looked at what the judges' scorecards were before the finish. By the way, that finish being coming by way of a head kick that ices Dominic Cruz. It put him out cold. But yeah, because I was thinking, like, that is about as thoroughly as you could win a round, other than the flash knockdown at the end, towards the end of round 1. And I kind of wish I had the video of the knockdown up also, because I don't remember if he dropped to a knee or if he fell on his ass for a sec, but he did pop right back up.
In my mind's
right back
eye,
into the fight.
like in my mind's eye, it looked like he just went like I saw
Hmm.
quite a bit of the back of his head and
Hmm.
his like shoulders on the
Yeah.
ground, and he did push up quick, but he was like he had a real drunken, surprised face
Hmm. Yeah.
that
He.
I can't get out of my mind. He was just like, "Oh no!" And then when it wasn't so much seeing him get knocked down because I've seen guys. I mean, come on, we've been watching this for how long? Seen lots of different combat sports, and we've seen guys take shots a lot harder than that and get up and keep going.
Yeah.
It was his face when he got up, and his eyes were just like, oh, his eyes were just wide open. And he's not. We've talked about it before. He's very smart, self-aware, and if he had a face like that, when like you're at the store or something. And something wild happens, or when you're a kid and you're at the store, something wild happens,
Hmm.
and like you look over and your dad is like scared. You're just like, oh, I need to be scared too.
Yeah.
So like that was the feeling I got, was like, if my pops is fucking scared, dude, I should be fucking scared. So when I saw Dominic Cruz, like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
that's
Dom's
when I
always
was like, shit,
he's
man.
always been composed and just
Yeah,
like ice cold. Like it takes a lot to like fluster him for sure.
right.
So yeah, just the sense that like, oh, that was already a knockdown in round one. I was hoping
Yeah,
to see Cruz maybe put 2 rounds in the books before we got there, but yeah, seeing that knockdown happen early in round one, and I gave Cruz round two. I don't believe there was any
yeah.
knockdown
He
in
got
round two.
he had that takedown in round two, right? Or
Hmm.
was it the takedown in round 2 or 3?
Yeah, he changed the pace of the fight a bit, but then
Yeah.
by round three, it started to turn around for Marlon Vera a bit, and then round four, we know how it went. He put the paces on him. What do we see moving forward for Dominic Cruz, man? I mean, I know we got a lot to talk about with Marlon Vera because the the future's like wide open for Marlon Vera now. He's facing the
Yeah.
top of the division, and a lot of those guys are booked. But that's also potentially a good thing because he can kind of like sit and see how those fights play out. And we
Right.
know he's no stranger to calling people out. He's not so much about like the clickbait bullshit, but he will tell you like, "Hey, man, it's nothing personal. It's just business. But I'm here to fuck anybody
Yeah.
up." But let's talk about Dominic Cruz a little bit here because the man was surging. He looked like he was every bit the bantamweight contender that he thought he was, and for my money, he doesn't look washed by any means.
Oh,
Despite
absolutely not.
what a lot of
Yeah.
people, what the discourse has been online. What would you like to see for him moving forward?
Fighting Cody Garbrandt.
You want to see the rematch with Cody
Yeah, I
Garbrandt?
want to see Cody Garbrandt. Yeah, that's all. That's pretty much it. I think we saw like Robbie Lawler got booked today against Ponzinibbio. Like fights like that. You know what I mean? Like Cerrone's out. A legend like Cerrone's out. Nate Diaz is gonna be dead here in the next few months. So like that champion circuit, like like the PGA Tour has the champions like tour, where it's guys who have won or guys who were really really up. They're up there in age, but they can still go out and play.
Yeah.
And I think he's like on that champions tour portion, and he can still, those guys still play in like the major tournaments, or they play in the big like for championships, but we all kind of know like, oh, if they do win, it's kind of like super amazing. They're always like right around competing with the younger guys, but they're just something off in their game, or
Right.
they just don't have that fastball. And I think that he just doesn't have that fastball anymore, and he doesn't have that dominant wrestling that he had, that we saw, which I don't think even Prime Dom would be as much of a factor. His wrestling in this era of mixed martial arts where everybody can almost wrestle, especially in bantamweight and the weights that he's going to be competing in.
Yeah.
Pretty much everybody's going to be able to wrestle, so at least defensively wrestle. So he just doesn't have that anymore, and I think like a lot of the guys like Jan or Peter Jan or these guys or Aldo or anyone within the weight range that he can fight in is just going to have that heat that he doesn't have.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree about the takedowns, or at least the explosiveness of them. To my eyes, like I said, he still looked fast to me, and he did score some takedowns, but it seemed like he was really relying on timing. Like he had to really time them perfectly to get those takedowns, and and catch Cruz kind of slipping or put the takedown behind some strikes. But there was no explosion. And I mean, we know the history that he has with his knees. So it doesn't really seem like, that's, especially like you mentioned at that weight division where a lot of people are going to be testing him like that. And Cheeto wasn't going to be the guy who's going to like go diving for his leg, to threaten him with a takedown or anything like that. So I would be still interested to see what his defensive wrestling looks like. Like you mentioned, there's a lot of guys who will test that in his division, and maybe he doesn't necessarily need to have the offensive wrestling capability as much as the defensive. But yeah, I can't say I disagree. I think that would be an exciting fight. We'd have to kind of wait and see a little bit if Cody Garbrandt would be coming back up from flyweight, because he did drop down to 125 pounds, I believe, and ate a loss there.
I think he's booked too. It's not like a high-profile fight, but he's booked against
He is booked against Hani Yahya, and that is and that actually is a bantamweight fight, so he is coming back up. So yeah, good call on that, because before that he came up short last December against Kai Kara France.
Not a bad way to lose, but I mean, I feel like that fight moves the needle for both guys. If he's able to beat Yahya, then why not?
Yeah.
I'm
a little. No sound, please. I'm a little bit. I'm going in a different direction for what I would like to see next from Dominic Cruz, but it is going to depend on how things play out in that Jose Aldo Merab Dvalishvili fight this coming weekend, because I don't want to shift to that too much, but I think if Jose Aldo comes up short in that fight against Merab, I would really like to see that Aldo versus Cruz fight that we've never got to see. I think that would be a really, really classic. And I think that it's on paper, it's guys who are like around in the WEC. You know what I mean? They were like some of those inaugural WEC champions that jumped over and just automatically became champions in the UFC. So it is like a legends fight for me. I think Aldo has a little bit more leeway to kind of stick around in contendership if he comes up short against Merab. But either way, I think they're both kind of like in that same graduating class of guys who are. It kind of feels like a legends match to me altogether. But like I said, we'll still have to wait and see how that plays out next week. I don't want to get too far ahead. How about Marlon Chito Vera though? I mean,
he's gonna want to stay active, and I would like to see him. If Merab wins, I'd like to see him fight Merab. He's not gonna wait until Jan figures it out and Dillashaw and everybody figures it out. He's gonna want to just hit the fucking gas and just go. So if Merab wins, and they're so close, if Merab can win and not take an insane amount of punishment, which I don't quite see him taking, it just would depend. Maybe it would just depend. I just don't see him taking an insane amount of punishment, just his style. Going up against Aldo. And I think that Cheeto's going to want to stay active. Merab beats Aldo, then they're pretty close together as far as when their most recent fights were. They're not going to want to wait because Aljamain's not going to fucking. If he wins, if he beats TJ Dillashaw, he's not going to be like, "Let's go, Cheeto Vera, let's go."
Yeah,
he's not going to want to fucking do that. He's not. He's going to say he does, and there's going to be some excuse. So and maybe Dillashaw. If Dillashaw wins, he'll jump in there and do it. I don't see him doing that either. I mean, this is his second fight since he's been back.
Yeah.
He's been back in 3 years. He's old. If he holds on to that belt, he's going to want to do it. I guess maybe Peter Yan, but that's down the road. I mean, we're all excited about that, O'Malley and Peter Yan, but that's months, And Cheeto's in his prime. He wants to fight. He says that he wants to stay active.
Yeah. He's in a tough spot right now because all the other relevant bantamweights, kind of more towards the top of the top 10, are all booked up except for him.
Right.
Aljamain has a date with TJ Dillashaw. Peter Yan's got Sean O'Malley. Aldo, like we mentioned, has Merab. Even Corey Sandhagen, not that anybody would be calling for that match, but
I
or
would.
not. I mean, it would be great, but like he shouldn't have to fight backwards from where he's at right now.
I think he
because
would if he'd make an exception. Sandhagen would be the guy he would.
yeah, but Sandhagen's riding a 2-fight losing streak right now, and he's booked against Song Yadong for September 17th. I think if Song wins that fight, he will be on a 4-fight winning streak, and I think that would be a banger. Like I would love to see Song Yadong versus Mark Chito Vera, and I believe, let me pull up Chito's record. I think that's one of his former losses, so that might be a fight. Yeah, he has a loss to Song Yadong in 2020. So if Chito wants to be vindictive and run that back and is maybe okay with not going for the title, and it might not be up to him either, because like I said, like we could be looking at, if Aldo comes up with a W over Merab, he may very well be up next for a title shot. If Peter Yan absolutely
pretty damn well should be.
Absolutely. If I had the magic wand, that's happening for sure.
Right.
If Peter Yan absolutely puts a clinic on Sean O'Malley, I mean, there's a lot of dudes who are knocking on the door of contendership. So it's Marlon Chito Vera is in good company, but he's going to have to be creative in the way that he's going to want to stay busy, because like you said, I don't think that Aljamain Sterling's necessarily going to be saying his name. I think that would be an interesting matchup, and I would favor Aljamain Sterling in that fight just because of his grappling alone. But not who's calling out Chito Vera. You know what I mean? Like, that's so dangerous of a guy, man. That's just a battle of attrition.
I mean, Aldo's beat him, but you talk about. I think he beat Sterling pretty easily. I think he could probably beat Aldo. I mean, now that he's a little bit more down the road, both of them are more down the road. It would be interesting to see him fight Merab. That's the one that I would like to see him, to really like to see, like, how that's the championship fight for me, like barometer, because for me, after seeing how he's done and just seeing the way that he's you can kind of see in his fights how he sees mixed martial arts. You can see how he plots and how he's fucking evil. He works insanely hard. He's fucking dedicated to it. Everyone says that, which a lot of people say that about anybody, about anyone in their own camp or promoters, whoever. But you can see it, and we've seen it, going. And he's just now the O'Malley fight looks way different now.
Yeah.
A lot of his fights look way different now.
Oh yeah, we can definitely talk.
When he lost to Jose Aldo, you're just like, oh man, really? Because Aldo's in a different spot at that point. Yeah. Now Aldo looks like he's back to even, not better than he was, but just as goddamn good. So.
And that was an interesting fight too, because I believe it kind of played out kind of in the same way that Marlon Vera's meta kind of works out against his opponents, where he'll kind of take a beating and find his shots to make the difference in the fight. And that's kind of what Jose Aldo did to him in a way too. Although that's definitely a fight worth going back and revisiting.
Of his whole legacy looks way different now down the road. And it was one of those things where you and I'm not sure if I know we've talked about him before. We've talked about him. We did talk about him in the after Rob Font, and it's just everything about him right now, and it's recency bias. We do this almost every fucking podcast. The guy who comes out looking great, we do the whole man. He's just watch out for him. We do that every fucking pod, but I think seeing how, because he was taking shots from Cruz, he took some clean shots from Dominic Cruz, and he got to the podium. He looked like he went jogging. He had just gone jogging.
Yeah.
So it was like, dude, and then he was in this insane fight with Rob Font. Nothing was wrong with him. Absolutely nothing was wrong with him. He took like, I think we looked, it was only like close to 200 power shots or something like that. Not even to mention like body shots, leg shots, and he's just not even talking different. So it's like, what is going on with this guy, dude?
Yeah, he has a fucking like scary invulnerability, but it can't last forever. I will say that. you know, that's
It can
one
if
of the
you're
that's a
if you're
style.
taking
Or
care of yourself. If you're taking care of yourself, if you're eating right, you're working out right, you're clean, you're sleeping, you're really looking at your micronutrients, your vitamins intake, your blood work. It can last a lot longer
yeah,
than like a fucking Patty Pimblett. You know what I mean? Where
right,
there's just that's a recipe for there's no longevity in that.
yeah.
But if he's living the way that he is, by all appearances, then and if he's got good genetics, and he could just be one of those guys.
How about the prediction by, was it Eric Nixick? Like a minute before the actual finish of the fight came, I think he tweeted, he tweeted exactly what apparently Chito Vera had saw in the cage, was that Dominic Cruz to get out of the pocket, he likes to cut an angle, and he likes to go out to his right, dipping his head a lot. And he read it like it was literally like 61 seconds before Marlon Vera actually did it in the gym. And they said that's something that he'd been looking for. So yeah, it's very promising to me, because it shows that he listens to his corner. He goes in with a game plan, and nothing can make him go off of that game plan, which I think is underrated in mixed martial arts. It's really scary. I think a lot of people enjoy seeing a guy who likes to go in there and say, fuck it, I'm going to die on my, I'm going to go out on my shield, and it's kill or be killed. But I think I am more entertained by the Terminators of the sport. It's like, no, this is what I do well, and I know what you don't do well, or I'm here to exploit the openings in your game. Like that's really scary to me. So, what Chito Vera does in that cage, the way that his kind of like fighting style is playing out, I don't think there's a lot of longevity in it for him, but it's goddamn entertaining while he's doing it.
Yeah, I agree, and I disagree. I agree. I think the thing that I disagree with you is I do think there's longevity in it for him. I do think he can go, because he's not like he's not having these fights where he's going to the hospital afterwards.
Yeah.
He's not going to these fights where he's he's in the back and he's iced down and he can barely get to the presser and he looks like he just got hit by, he just doesn't, and that's
Yeah.
If he was taking, because he does take quite a few shots, but there's something to be said, like your body, it doesn't look like he had any trauma,
Yeah.
Like he took a lot of blunt force trauma, but he's not really, and that's the thing too, is there's longevity in it in bantamweight, because those guys, are outside of like Jose Aldo, TJ has, he can spark somebody. There's really not anybody that he's going to fight on the way up to the title, or even maybe defend at this point, that has the same power that he does. And he's such a bigger man than the guys that he fights against, that I just don't see how it's really going to take that much mileage off him. If he was a guy who was killing himself, more, it doesn't look like he kills himself to get down to that weight. He looks so much bigger, but I think it's just the way he's built. But yeah, so I think there is some longevity in it for him, and he's in the prime of his career. The one thing that does really suck is the guys at the top are at end points of their career, and they're and Chito's a pro's pro, where they're not gonna want the real ones know who not to fight against, and they're just not gonna want to see him. Right. They're just not gonna want to see him. TJ Dillashaw, at this point in his career, if anything happened, he doesn't want to fucking see Chito Vera ever. He hopes he never has to fight him. Jose Aldo would probably I mean, deep down,
that was a tough win for Jose Aldo.
Yeah, would probably think like, I would rather
well-earned win.
If I had to do this, I would rather not.
Yeah.
I think Merab is down to fight him. And this is us just speculating, talking out of our ass about people we'll never fucking speak to. Or
Merab's in the room with me right now. Merab, yeah. would you fight Chito Vera? Yeah.
You just hear the fucking the jump rope stop for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
No, but yeah.
And to Marlon Vera's credit too, I'm looking at his record right now. He only has he's only ever lost by decision. All his 7 of his losses come by way of decision. So Marlon Vera right now officially is a guy who does not lose. He just runs out of time. So
Right.
yeah, nobody's put him away yet. So that's
Yeah.
on paper he doesn't really look like he's taking as much damage as I'm like worrying about.
And
so.
he's not carrying injuries in. TJ's got injuries. Fucking Aljamain's got. I mean, he goes on every podcast and talks about the long list of injuries that he carries into every single fucking fight. And he just doesn't seem like he's carrying anything along with him.
And Marlon Vera's fighting for his family too. I know that's a real objective thing to kind of like quantify, or like what matters for that, like for a fighter going into the cage. But I think Marlon Vera is a guy who we can tell that's a difference maker too. He's not.
It's a Latin
not
American guy fighting for his family.
Exactly.
Like it's a white guy.
It started out.
TJ Dillashaw.
Yeah, he started out trying to earn money for his daughter's surgery. You know what I mean? So it's there's dudes out there who are just trying to get the money because it's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to just chase the bag. You know what I mean? But this is a man who's definitely gone without and was fight tooth and claw to get out of that. And I think that's a factor too for a guy like Marlon Vera. It may not be for every fighter, but for him, it absolutely is.
He's just a spooky fuck. He is a spooky fuck. When you hear him talk, he means it, and it doesn't sound like he's playing a role. He's not fucking Colby Covington, where he's like hyping himself up to be this way. He's just like, I'm this way. I've experienced way too much, and you're not gonna. If you're gonna you're the guy that's gonna take it from me, then I'm gonna have to fucking die. Goddamn, that's wild.
Yep. So the Spanish commentary team reigned supreme over the English commentary team, because that's what that fight was. I forgot to mention that in our breakdown. That was Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera does Spanish commentary versus Dom's English commentary. So boom, gotta love it. Gotta find any reason to.
Is it Chito and Brandon Moreno that do the fucking commentary?
I've seen that Brandon Moreno does also do Spanish commentary, but I don't know if he's like a regular commentator.
Mexican though. I think he does like Mexican national broadcast, like possibly. So that whatever channel goes to Mexico, because he goes to the Mexican commentator after every fight and like says hi and does this whole thing.
Yeah.
So
I just don't know if it's a regular thing for Brandon Moreno, but I know that Marlon Vera is like the go-to like Spanish commentator actually right now. So props to him, man. It's good that he's got that fucking tied up. I know Verdum used to do the Spanish commentary before they parted ways with him in the past, but we don't need to spend too much time discussing commentary. Let's get to this co-main event, which I'm going to have to pass the ball to you and let you kind of break it down for me, because I actually didn't get to see this fight, which I'm very, very ashamed of, because this was given the fight of the night bonus. I got to listen to some of this fight because I had to leave the house and go run an errand. I had the fight on my phone, and I was listening while I was in my ear, but my connection was choppy. But Nate Landwehr versus David Onama put on without question, the fight of the night, and what I heard some people talking about as possible fight of the year. There was a lot of swings and momentum. How could you describe it to me? Like what? I don't even know if it should have been a majority decision or a split decision or how it played out, but it sounded like there was at least one 10-8 in this fight.
Yeah, it went back and forth pretty, and Onama came out just fucking busting ass. And going into the fight, a lot of people were like, Landwehr just it doesn't quite have it all, can't put it all together, and Onama's been getting better and better as he's gotten through, he rose through the regional, and then the few fights that he has, that he looks great, and he was just getting better every time. He's in that James Krause school where we just saw that he does quite a good job training his fighters. So it was just like and then Landwehr seemed like a meme kind of fighter to me. He seemed like a meme fighter, like one of those guys where it's like, oh, he has that like cult kind of following where he's good on the mic. He's had some exciting fights. He fucking fought in Russia, so it's just like, Jesus Christ. Like,
yeah, I'm looking at his the picture they have on him for Tapology, and he's got his M1 gloves on in the photo. Right. So it's like, okay,
you're a hard motherfucker to go to Russia and fight. And then he was not just that, he was like a hero to them over there. Like, they loved him over there. So to to not be a native and to go over to M1 and then gain a following there. I can't imagine that's very easy to do.
Yeah. I was impressed by, like I said, I didn't get to see the fight, but I was impressed by the call outs that he had. Mike was telling me when I told him that I wasn't actually currently watching the fight while it was on. He was like, dude, Billy Quarantillo. I mean, here I am fucking spoiling the call out. He said that Nate Landwehr's, he's like too scrappy. Like, how are you missing this fight? And I hear that he called out either Billy Quarantillo or either that or Shane Burgos, which now we've come to find out that Shane Burgos is signed with the he's signed with the PFL, so he's out of the UFC for now. Both fantastic call outs. Both fantastic call outs. Billy Quarantillo. I mean, and then also kind of like knowing that the fight is going to sell or put butts in seats more than the record versus the record, because to call out a guy named Billy Quarantillo who's actually coming off of a loss, he said, like, fuck it, like that tells me that Nate Landwehr knows, like, hey, what matters is that we put on a show. And he
go ahead and spoil the call outs. Go ahead and spoil the call outs in the post fight, because as soon as I heard this man speak, I just was done. I was finished. I was like, okay, great fight, thanks. Like, I don't need anything from you anymore. Anytime someone tries to do like the Breaking Bad like combo or like skinny P, or what is it, skinny P or whatever the fuck, where they're just like, it sounds like terrible acting. He sounded like someone in Jesse Pinkman's Crew.
Some very
that fucking accent.
Yeah, some real Malibu's Most Wanted coming out of this guy. Yeah.
I just did not. I can't do that. I just can't. And it's like, damn, dude. And then what was even crazier was I was watching the fight, just like you. I was at the store actually, stopping every aisle, watching the whole round, fucking clogging it up. People were trying to get by me, and I'm like standing in front of like all the sale items, and people, like, I just see all these Mexican moms like all mad, and they're like, "What's wrong?" And I had my headphones in, so they couldn't see what I'm doing. And like, I just got back from the gym, so I'm just like dripping sweat in the middle of an aisle, looking at them like with these wide eyes, like, this is insane. And then they're just like, what is wrong with this? And then the store that I went to is like it's a Hispanic store, so they're just like all these like Mexican nationals like just looking at me, just like, what in the fuck is wrong with this guy? And I'm like, oh, go ahead, you're fine. And, oh man.
And let me guess, when Nate Landwehr started to talk, you can only hear it, and you probably thought to yourself, wait, did Onama win? Like, what's going on?
Yeah, what in the fuck? But what was
I wasn't expecting him to sound like that either. That's my first experience with Landwehr. Go on. Sorry.
So in that morning, usually on like Saturday mornings, like the main event and the co-main, I'll watch their highlights, all four fighters. I'll watch their highlights, and then I'll watch like some of their key matchups if they're, if one of them has fought a current champ or a contender, just to see how it, so I can have something to talk about here, like, oh, he has fought the current champ or whatever, right. Or this is how he looked. And I didn't get to see Landwehr's fights, which I feel bad that I didn't put that on. But David Onama has a good splash reel. He has some good fights.
Yeah,
you can tell he came in raw. And then you can tell he's taking it seriously, and he's going out there and using everything he can to get better. And so it just made that fight look all that much more insane.
And this was an upset win for Landwehr also. Like Onama was heavily favored by knockout,
right?
A lot.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. And it was real. I think we're talking about it like warming up for this, like in that second round. Krause is going up to Onama, is like, what the fuck what are you doing? Mm-hmm. You're gonna let this guy fucking beat you? You're gonna let this guy break you? This is all you come this far, you've done all this, you're gonna let this guy fucking break you? And it was just like, whoa, this is fucking wild, this is crazy. Like it was like movie kind of commentary where you want to hear like the more gritty breakdown, like, getting into it as far as like strategy and what he's doing, what he's not doing, where he's at, maybe in scorecard wise. This was just straight like talking to him, like, and then going into the third, he was just like, you want to fight? You want to keep fighting? What do you want to do? You gonna keep fighting, or do you want me to throw the? And then he was like grabbing the towel, like, I'll fucking end it right here.
Yeah.
and Onama looked like he was dead. Could barely get up off the fucking. He just took an insane beating towards the end of that fight, and then he was also just the swings, the emotions that go into fights like this. It's got to be draining emotionally. Like all of your fucking adrenaline's got to be gone.
Yeah.
And somehow he found, and then he goes out for the third, and he starts taking shots, and you're just like, shit, they should have just thrown in the towel. And after about a minute and a half in, he just starts fucking swinging like he was in the first round. And it was like, this is it. That's what made the fight of the night, or the fight of the year, maybe.
Yeah.
Was that burst that he had. And then it, like Landwehr, the way he reacted to it, he was like, oh, fuck, okay. And they both just kind of like forgot how tired they were, and they just went after it. So it was amazing.
Yeah, a true fight of the year contender needs to have like some kind of a back and forth, like there were momentum shifts. Like it's never, it can never really be all one way traffic. So,
oh no, and I think later into the second, or most of the second into the third, Landwehr looked like he was just closing out the show, and then Onama found something in that third round, and now it was like it looked like he was like fresh, just going out for the first round. So it was crazy.
Yeah. Well, Nate Landwehr and David Onama still too. I mean, he's only fallen to 10-2. Both still have respectable records. And then, but exciting stuff moving forward for a featherweight.
And fuck anybody who said this card was just on paper saying this card wasn't going to be great. Like, fuck them, because this was great. This card was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Now, on paper, this is a bad card. This is a very, very top-heavy card. There's not a lot else. And, I mean, it definitely exceeded expectations, but definitely not fuck anybody who said this was a bad card, because it was not a good card.
Nah, fuck them. I'm just saying that because I saw you on your post. You put this card's butt cheeks, but you could hear isn't that what you said? Something like that.
Card was cheeks. It's not a card that needed to sell pay-per-views, so they could put on whatever they want on this card. But as far as name brand attraction, like I mean, we've seen plenty of cards that are bad on paper overperform or punch above their weight, which this card certainly did, because there was two fight of the night contenders, and that's a good way to segue into the next fight also, because this one was the one that I saw. Like I didn't see the Landwehr versus Onama fight, so maybe that's why I don't think that we should be saying fuck anybody who thought it was a bad card. 'Cause you know what? I didn't see it. You could very well be lying to me. Maybe that fight was a fucking snoozer. And really, Mexico's Yasmin Jauregui versus Brazil's Yasmin Lucindo, the strawweight matchup at the showcase portion of the card, was also a fight of the night contender. Both girls making their UFC debut on a main card, and with an audience, not on an Apex card or anything either. And they showed out, dude. Yasmin Jauregui gets the unanimous decision. She climbs to 9-0. And Yasmin Lucindo falls to 13-5, but both girls' stocks definitely rose with this fight. Yasmin Jauregui looked amazing. Obviously, since she looked tremendous, all of the comparisons to Joanna Jędrzejczyk were starting to be made because she's a female fighter who fights with a Muay Thai style. But those are legit comparisons, because we've seen those comparisons get thrown around for like Marina Rodriguez, who fights nothing like Joanna. But even further, Yasmin Jauregui actually fights more aggressively than Joanna, because she has the volume and she looks like she has the pop behind her punches, whereas a fighter like Joanna was really trying to beat you on points and take you into deep waters. Yasmin Jauregui was out there looking for blood. Like, she was trying to put Yasmin Lucindo away, and that's how I picked it on verdict. I was really hoping that she would be able to put her away. But she doesn't do it. She gets it done in 3 rounds by decision. What did you think about the fight, Brandon?
This one had that like one championship type of feel to it, where you just hear the shots is just like you can hear and they were just in the pocket fighting, and like swinging hard, and they didn't really lose any steam going down. They were like, it seemed like they both were like just really like not trying to out tough each other, trying to just out, and like they're both young, they're both like up and comers, which was like super interesting to me, that was the dynamic that was really interesting to me. It's like 23, and was she like 19, like 20 or 19 or something like that, right?
I believe
20 years old.
Lucindo. I'll pull up her age right now.
Like
Go
20,
ahead. Keep going.
And then Wadaki is 23 with a 5-year-old kid. So like
Lucindo is 20, and apparently they've made mention of this on the broadcast that she had already been fighting for like 5 years.
She was like 14. She was like pro at 14.
Yeah, she's been fighting since she was 15 years old.
It's like, what in the fuck? So, and then you don't see it too often, but like you just saw Dana like just like a red tomato just across, just losing his mind watching this fight. And so that's kind of exciting. And for the strawweight division, it's exciting to have two gals like this. It's kind of, and I had mentioned to you in our like chat that I was like, man, this is evil that they put these two girls together so quick. You know, they don't. It was kind of like that vibe of Gamrot and Sarukian, where it's like, why are they making these guys fight each other right now?
Yeah.
Where maybe like they can go off and kind of gain a highlight reel down and then see each other down the road. But I'm glad that they didn't. It was amazing. And just to go back to what I said, that like one championship feel when you watch it, the way it's mic'd up, or just the sound and like the sound that they were putting on each other, and they weren't really, they were hitting each other hard. They weren't reacting to the shots. They were taking some hard fucking shots where you're like, oh, and the commentary was like, whoa, but they weren't, their faces weren't like, they weren't ever really scared of the shots, and they're taking some crazy shots and they're younger girls, so they're taking these crazy shots. They're right there on a main fight card in a huge, and then apparently from what you read and what I heard when watching it, that crowd was insane. I mean, fucking literally blocks away is like a crazy ass cartel fight, and they're just fucking, the cartel's just like owning people, like not even that far down, miles down the road, and they're just fucking going at it in the cage. That is like what it's all about right there.
Yeah, both girls definitely made a name for themselves, and even if you only remember the winner's name, you also remember the loser's name because they're both Yasmin.
Yeah.
And we saw Dana White, like you mentioned, go right up to Yasmin Jauregui when she was leaving the cage and giving her props. She's an exciting prospect at 9-0. I would like to see that wrestling get tested, and I think that there's a lot of girls who will test that wrestling. There's not a lot of powerhouse wrestlers in this division. It's definitely more of a small girl Muay Thai striker division.
Great point.
But either way, so I think that she'll find some parity there on her way up, because she is only, at least on Topology ranking, she's only ranked 34 right now. And as I was watching this fight, I started salivating over the potential for a fight with Silvana Gomez Juarez, which Silvana La Malvada, if you remember her last fight, she's got freaking knockout power. Maybe Sam Hughes, they're ranked right next to each other, but she's got a fight booked. Anyways, we don't have to play too much of a matchmaker, because I can go on for that. But
for me, as amazing as Wadaki looked, and like everyone kept like, there's like Jauregui or Jauregui, and like to me, like I know people with that exact spelling, and they always said Wadaki. Is that But
I've never seen it before, but I pull up a video of her actually saying Jauregui.
Saying it.
She said Jauregui.
That makes sense. Yeah, and no one would know better than. And then she's like deep, like Mexico, so
straight out of TJ.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess technically, geographically, not super deep, but I mean, for all intents and purposes,
like a deep Mexican roots, like as far as I'm not talking about fucking Mazatlan or
actual location. Yeah. She was on a pyramid.
She's not catching swordfish.
That was a good one, man. Let's keep putting strawweight on the map. Sorry, go on.
To me, the one as I was just about to say, like, she looked amazing. She looks great. She deserves all of the accolades that she gets. Lucindo, with that judo type of base that she has, I think in having that, I think we've seen with Ronda, we see with Kayla Harrison, having a judo base is like really dangerous in female MMA, because these gals, they kind of find themselves in kind of weird angles and positions, and if you can make these like use people's or use another girl's momentum against them to
Yeah.
throw them in WMMA, like Valentina does it.
Yeah.
Chev does it really well, and so that's something that to me that like your kind of antenna goes up when you see someone that's that confident in striking, who is that cool and just that she just that composed in the middle of a fight like that. And then you hear that she's an amazing judoka. You're just like, wow, okay, like this isn't the last we're gonna hear from this guy, I guarantee you.
There's always hunger for someone who's a good judoka and actually uses it in the cage. Like somehow, like that everyone wants, like everybody's kind of like low key rooting for somebody with really good judo to always be a factor in whatever division they're in. We've seen it before, going back to fucking Carl Parisian. Like Carl Parisian's not the kind of guy who would have been a fan friendly for any reason other than the fact that he was straight up tossing dudes on their heads with judo, and like it's really exciting. So that's a good point. And if for nothing else, and not to slam dunk on WMMA too much, because I mean I love WMMA, but a lot of girls in WMMA use that fucking head and arm throw way too much. And it really honestly shouldn't work as much as it does. And to see anyone who with even a little bit of a grasp of judo, that automatically means you're going to cancel that out.
Yeah, so, that's like, you're not going to see. And that's exact. Thank you. Oh man, we're just simpatico, dude, because that's exactly where my mind was, like, because not so much judo where she can use it against these gals, is where these girls use sloppy, like, oh, I've seen a YouTube video judo, so if you're this close to me, I can kind of do this and I'll get away with it because you're not as strong. Because that's why in the men's division, you don't see, there are some good judo guys out there, but you don't see it as prominent in what they're doing. You know, in the middle of a fight, or you know, you kind of neutralize it just because of the strength, the upper body strength that they have. So it kind of neutralizes it, especially against a good wrestler. Whereas in WMMA, and Lucindo looked like she's still got a frame where she can put quite a bit of a muscle on, and she's young enough to do it. So it's real exciting that type of shit, that Mickey Mouse shit, that sometimes those throws, you know, like you see like Andrade pull some of this shit where it's like real tight in. That shit's just not going to work against someone who understands judo. Yeah,
very good point. So there was a couple other fights on this main card. It was a 6-fight main card. And I don't want to spend too much more time here because we still do have to do our breakdown of UFC 278. But if there's anything that you wanted to touch on, Azamat Murzakanov versus Devin Clark.
That guy looks, wow, dude. That guy is the real deal, dude. Do not, that, I think, as I heard you saying that, like, if there's, like, Gerald Mershart, great performance, did great. We kind of know he's a good fighter.
Priscilla Cachoeira, impressive finish, but partially because Arelina Lipsky was fighting like a dumbass. But
but I think of all of it, and Onama was amazing. Onama looked good. Landwehr looked great. Cheeto and Dom did their thing. They both, no surprises in the Cheeto and Dom fight. Really, I mean, it was surprising how rough Cheeto ended it, but. I think the most disgusting thing, Angela Hill making as much money as she did, that's just, we don't even have to get into that. But Murzakanov looks amazing, just incredible. Absolutely amazing. And it might not sound like much, and no one listening to this, I doubt, is really going to go back and watch it again. But I am going to follow this guy like crazy, because the things that you saw, the way he did it, was just, it's just something about the way I think I see the sport. I saw him doing it. And where Clark kind of came out and got him in a compromise. I think he got him with like a kick, right? The first thing he did is the one thing I always say is Murzakanov put him against the cage, fucking held him there, grabbed his composure, and then exited with some nasty ass elbows and then a body shot. And Clark was like on his back foot and didn't quite know what to do after that, where he just neutralized anything. So that's amazing.
Yeah, all the building blocks for a fucking a terror at light heavyweight, and it's just exciting to
Yeah.
see more dudes showing up at
Oh,
light
yeah.
heavyweight too. 12-0, and what I like to kind of describe as like a really aggressive counter striker, because naturally, like when we think counter striker, we think somebody. Can you hear me? Okay, just wanted to make sure. I heard a sound. I wasn't sure. I think you might. I might not be able to hear you. Say something.
No, I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry.
My bad. No problem. Drawing out and getting openings by feinting like really effectively and getting Devin Clark to open up and then just blasting him with the straight left. It definitely seemed to have enough of the wrestling prowess to control whether or not the fight stays on the feet or not. Put Devin Clark on the cage like you'd mentioned when he was hurt. I mean, just the way that we're describing it, if someone didn't see this fight, it might not sound like we're describing some guy that we think is going to be this big difference maker at light heavyweight. No, right. But I'm telling you, he did look like he did.
Yeah,
he absolutely did look like it.
Yeah. And it's hard. It's that thing that's hard to explain. And I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I've made this point, and I make this point in my head where it's like you're in nature, and then it's like that uncanny valley where something just looks different than everything else around it, or everything else that you've kind of seen. You just know the difference. Like if you're at the zoo and you're like watching, you're there, you're watching animals, and then you can tell the way certain predators move. They just move different than the other animals that are usually preyed on. You can just tell like the slight subtle differences in the way they walk, the way they move their heads, just the way they carry themselves. And this guy carries himself like fuck, remember that episode of The Simpsons where Homer's like, that little guy hasn't done anything yet, and he's like, you can just tell he's gonna fucking do something, where like you could just tell by the way someone's standing there. It's just like, that guy fucking he knows something. There's something in his head that he just knows. So it sounds like it, or to me it looked like he knows that's not all he has, and he knows what he can do, and he's done some wild shit to people, and we just haven't seen it yet.
Absolutely. I don't remember or recall if he made a call out in his post-fight in his post-fight interview. Looking at it right now, I'm not seeing anything come up.
Headline-wise. I just remember, and it's kind of hard because we joke about it, but the Brazilian and Mexican interpreter is just fucking electric every time he goes in there, and he was working a lot. And then they had the Russian interpreter come in, and you could tell he was kind of like stuck in between two minds, like trying to explain. Mm-hmm. And it was one of those things where like he's like he said Murzakanov said a bunch of shit, and then the interpreter just said like two words, and you're like, that's not all he said. He said a lot more than that. He's just like, you should go to scene, and he's just like speaking for like an hour, and then he goes,
yes,
and the interpreter goes, yes, he said yes. It's like, dude, he said a lot more than yes, dude.
I'm looking at the light heavyweight rankings right now. Tapology has Murzakanov at number 22. So he has quite a ways to go. But a lot of the dudes in the like 14 to 21 region are in Bellator or scheduled to fight.
Yeah.
Like the next guy, 21, is Phil Davis. Like at 19, you have Ilan Kutalaba, but he's booked against Johnny Walker. I think the winner or loser of that fight, Johnny Walker versus Kutalaba, I don't hold either guy in very high regard, but I think that would be a fun enough fight for Murzakanov. Just feed Murzakanov.
Ilan Kutalaba against Murzakanov, and then that name, for whatever fucking reason, will give this guy that. Yeah, just Fight Plug, Man Crush. I'm glad you said it, dude, because Murzakanov is on my fucking... Who do we got? I got Arman Tsarukyan. I got the gentleman, Romonov, who's fighting this weekend, right?
Yes.
Spivak. And now... and then everyone... Okay, I mean, everyone dick writes Hamzat or Shavkat, but I mean, those guys are... That's my, like... Yeah. If I'm taking a Russian bath, it's going to be with those gentlemen.
You like that Eastern
And they're
talk.
all Russian guys.
They're all Russian guys, yeah.
Mm-hmm,
Straight up.
Just a weird smell.
Just
that
potato
Adidas
residue.
Adidas tracksuits just strewn around the room. Oh, yeah.
So oh man, I have so many tabs open right now. I think we are good to move on, though, and get to our breakdown of UFC 278. We will leave Fight Night San Diego in the rearview mirror and start to break down some of these fights, because we have a lot to talk about here. At least 3 of the main card fights we're going to speak to at length. We'll start at the top. Yeah. Kamaru Usman versus Leon Edwards. When's the last time you saw their first fight, or have you watched it?
I've seen the fight. I did watch that fight, like live or whatever. Not in person, but I saw it as it happened. Mm-hmm. I have not watched it I have not rewatched that fight. So
I did not watch that fight when it happened. I just rewatched it very recently, and it is not a fight that you or anybody would go back and rewatch. That's for sure. But for the sake of kind of like breaking down their fight, I went back and watched it pretty recently. And I gotta say, if you would have asked me, hey, how did this fight go down? Even back then, when Kamaru Usman wasn't even on my radar either. This was his first like official fight in the UFC after winning the Ultimate Fighter on the Ultimate Fighter finale, whatever card it was. And I would have said, like, yeah, that's exactly how that fight would have gone. Like, Kamaru Usman controlled him with the wrestling. Leon Edwards found some success in the stand-up and was able to touch up Kamaru Usman a little bit. But even then, Kamaru Usman had just the difference-making power, and he went ahead and touched Leon Edwards' back. And that was enough to deter Leon Edwards, and then Kamaru Usman was able to get it done with the wrestling and route to a decision. I got to ask if there's anything different. I mean, I don't know how much you remember their first fight. You said you hadn't watched it since it first happened.
Yeah. I've seen bits and pieces, and then like in the countdown lead up, but you always see things differently than, or at least my memory is just way different than what actually happened.
Oh, there's been plenty of fights
I'm just that type of person.
I've talked to Mike about, or we talk about old fights that we know we both watched together, and in my mind, that fight went a certain way, and we've gone back and rewatched them, and it's like, oh, what the fuck? Like, that is not at all how I remember that fight going. So, no, I trust. And this fight was, I mean, their first fight happened in 2015.
Right.
Like Mike Goldberg was still doing commentary for the UFC when these guys had their first fight. So there's a lot. I believe Leon Edwards has competed 9 times since then, and Kamaru Usman about 13. So on paper, I mean, Kamaru's been a little bit busier. More recently, though, Leon Edwards has really, really slowed down.
There's a lot of cycles ago.
A lot. Kamaru. Leon Edwards, his most recent win comes over Nate Diaz last June. So he's been out for a while even since then. Before that, he was in the cage and spent about a round with Belal Muhammad, straight dominating Belal, so to his credit, before that fight ended in no contest due to an eye poke on Belal, which was a pretty ugly eye poke. Like, he managed to
gross,
hook his bottom eyelid. I thought Bilal's eye was seriously fucked up. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the still shot of that still grosses me out, because it was like, because it's the fingers are exposed, and every part of the finger that's exposed out of Edwards' glove was like in Bilal's eye, right?
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah, that was a tough one.
Pushed Bilal's eye into his skull, I think they said, right? Like, it pushed it back into the socket. So it's just like, geez.
I know it definitely scratched something, and it was also one of those deals too, where it's like when you saw how Belal go down to, you just instantly know, like, oh, this fight's not going to continue. You can't. Wounded, you can't continue. Like, the way he reacted, I was like, okay, I'm expecting to see his eye hanging out of his eye socket. Right. It wasn't the case, but it didn't continue. Since his loss to Kamaru Usman, Leon Edwards has put together wins against the likes of, like I mentioned, Nate Diaz, Rafael Dos Anjos, Gunnar Nelson, Donald Cerrone, Brian Barberena, Vicente Luque, Albert Tumanov, to name a few, among others, just to put into some context how things are different since then. But, of course, we know Kamaru Usman has a pair of wins over Colby Covington, who's the consensus number 2 in the division. There's a lot of talk about how if Kamaru Usman didn't exist, Colby Covington would be the guy, you know. Two
Yeah.
wins over George Masvidal, a win over Gilbert Burns. He took the title from Tyron Woodley. Also has a win over Rafael dos Anjos there, because if you're relevant at welterweight, you probably have a win over Rafael dos Anjos. So
Right.
we
Yeah, you
shouldn't
have
be
to.
surprised that both guys have wins over them. He's been a lot more busy, but I know that Kamaru Usman is coming off of hand surgery. I gotta ask, is there any path to victory that you see here for Leon Edwards? What does
Nope.
he have to do? What does he need to be
Nope.
studying in the lab?
Nothing.
Not a whole
There's
lot. Huh?
nothing. I mean, what is he gonna do? What are we doing here?
Yeah,
we could sit here and pretend like come on. And Leon Edwards is an amazing mixed martial artist. Awesome story, crazy fucking story. By all appearances, he seems like a solid dude. Fucking technician for sure.
Mhm.
Watching him is very pretty. Yeah, just watching Leon Edwards highlights, it's really pleasing to watch him fight. Just how technically, not just technically good that, or just not technically pleasing as he is. I guess I'm like struggling to find the word,
Mhm.
but there's just something about it that just looks so smooth and so technical, which is very hard to mix. You can look smooth, but it may not be as technically sound, because you're putting a little extra mustard on it. He makes it just look easy. He makes striking look. What he does is incredibly hard.
Mhm.
In that weight division, it's incredibly hard, and he makes it look very easy.
Yeah. If we're
If I'm going
struggling,
to say something good about him.
yeah. If we're struggling to come up with ways to compliment Leon Edwards, but I got to remind everybody, in comparison to Kamaru Usman, because obviously, Leon Edwards is one of the top dogs in that division. But I like to commend him for mixing the martial arts effectively. Like, I think
Yes.
you were kind of getting at that too. Like there's being sharp, and then there's being kind of flowy. And I think one of his biggest strengths is that he's good everywhere. He's not bad anywhere. He doesn't have any real deficiencies that I would say. I wouldn't say. I mean, if anything, I would say his marketability is his only deficiency, and that has nothing to do with what he does inside the cage. He's not a fighter who I'd look at and be like, okay, dude, you really need to work on this. I mean, I wouldn't be telling that to fucking any fighter, period. But for what we see on the screen, as far as
throw a salad in, huh, Leon?
As far as us being talking heads, in this space and talking about fighters, but he's not great anywhere in particular. I would say he has the edge over Kamaru Usman as far as just straight striking skill. He has more tools in the toolbox. But
if one of the guys were going to fight Canelo, I would take Leon Edwards.
Probably. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd say so. They both get steamrolled, but if we want him to have a chance, but
the biggest difference between I'm sorry to cut you off.
Kamaru has even though I would say Leon Edwards has the edge in striking technique. Kamaru has the fight, the like we've mentioned, the fight ending power, the difference making power.
This is like an extra thing that you just can't quite explain, or just looks
And to his credit, the chin too. Because we haven't really seen Kamaru Usman really getting hurt in there, so it's and we have seen Leon Edwards. I mean, I don't want to be. It feels very casual to point out the Nate Diaz rock, but if you're going and you're getting rocked like that from a Nate Diaz right hand, which Nate Diaz isn't rocking anybody with that right hand. That's a super rare thing to see. That was what was most surprising about it too. It's not just he was just because there's plenty of fighters who say this guy's got a puncher's chance, and seeing that really, really makes me lose faith in his ability to go full 5 rounds with Kamaru Usman, fight perfectly the whole time, hit him with everything he needs to hit him with, and not take any of that damage in return.
Yeah, it's going to have to be insanely perfect for him to win.
To his benefit, I don't think Kamaru, and sorry to interrupt you, but I don't think Kamaru Usman uses as much of a wrestling game as he did back then now. I mean, and maybe if the fight's not going his way, he always has the option to take it there. But in more of his recent fights, Kamaru has been a guy who's kind of falling in love with his hands a bit. So
and the one when the two guys fight, I think what I'm going to be looking at, and if there's anyone listening to this,
there's no
just
one
watch.
listening to
Yeah,
this.
just watch. The one thing that I always look for in mixed martial artists is when they have to mix up, and it doesn't always happen, but when they have to mix up their techniques or their that whatever they have to, whether it's from jujitsu to boxing to
Yeah.
kickboxing to wrestling. Usman to me looks like he changes personalities. His gait, his body language changes when he's boxing mode, when he's wrestling mode. He just seems like a different person. Leon Edwards looks like the same person in everything that he does. Looks like which is really good because it doesn't seem like he gets lost in translation. It was like, okay, now I'm on the ground. What do I do down here? Mm-hmm. It just seems like it all kind of goes together. Whereas Usman does seem, Usman does seem like, okay, fuck, what? Okay, wrestling time. Okay, this is what I got to do. Mm-hmm. Where it's like there's that slight kind of, and with him, it's just everything's so quick and so fucking violent that it doesn't fucking matter. You know, and there's and in a weird, I think one thing that, not to say that I think the one thing that separates me from a fucking just a straight casual to like the type of fan that I am is I can see that.
It's me. See, like, it's your affiliation with me, but go on. Sorry. Go on.
Right. But the thing that I can always see someone who has that full game, the full, where you wouldn't know it if they were a wrestler, or they even like John Jones looks when he's striking, it just does not look like he's a striker. Mm-hmm. It just does. And you can tell he's like having to put a ton. It looks amazing. It's fucking brutal. It's fucking violent. It's quick, but you can tell it's not where it's just not his thing. Mm-hmm. Kamaru Usman's just not a striker. As amazing as he is, as powerful as he is, it just doesn't look right. Yeah. Israel Adesanya, when you see him wrestling, you look like he's like, I have to wrestle up, step, back foot, up, right. Mm-hmm. Don't let my hips out there. You can tell like it's very robotic. Yeah. Leon Edwards just looks like a fucking.
Yeah,
he just puts it all together.
Yeah, with some of those other guys, you get the sense that they have to become much more keenly aware of what their corner is telling them when they transition into those spaces. And to be fair to some of them too, and like we had mentioned with Edwards not having that or being able to mix the martial arts more effectively too. Sometimes it's just in those between spaces too. It's in the scrambles and it's in the clinch, or it's coming out of the clinch, or it's in getting taken down, where there's the level of guy where we see them kind of like going through the formulas in their head once they've arrived in that compromised position. It's like, okay, here's how I have to like think to get to fight this phase of the fight. And there's guys who can flip that switch pretty well, but there's a little bit, we see that confused state just in those transitions. And to be fair, that doesn't really exist for Leon Edwards, whether like he can be in the middle of getting like a single leg takedown or getting taken down, and he's already fighting like a guy who's transitioned to being a grappler. And that might sound like a whole lot of blowing of smoke. I mean, it's exactly what you said though. But yeah, like it might sound like a whole lot of blowing of smoke, but it is really, really, really important in mixed martial arts is that being able to switch on the fly and go back and forth. Because, dude, like even just grappling for 2 minutes, like that changes the entire pace of the fight. When I see a dude get up after somebody's been controlling him on the ground or dominating on the ground, let's say it's a referee stand up. Like oftentimes you see that guy who is a more dominant striker who's had to survive off of his back for 2 minutes. He's not the same striker when he gets up to his feet. Like he's got to fucking like get the blood flowing again in places where it wasn't going.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think this will be a bad fight though.
Oh no.
But
it's just I was someone who was such a huge Kamaru Usman fan, and there really isn't anything that, like, if I was deaf and I just didn't look at media or read anything else, would be nothing to keep me from being even more of a Kamaru Usman fan. Mm-hmm. There's just something about it that just makes I just lost interest in it. No. I don't know why. And fuck me, like the guy's pound for pound, an amazing him and Volkanovski are 1A, 1B.
Top three,
Of
pound for pound, easy.
Yeah,
Like,
easily
yeah,
out of waking up out of bed, even
yeah.
just getting up out of bed doesn't, regardless of matchup, he's top 3 pound for pound in the world. At any given time, he's the best fighter in the world.
And with one of the
And
best coaches in the game too, which
yeah,
is a lot different from the first time he fought Leon Edwards. Also,
yeah, with again, and just it's just a huge wealth of knowledge. You can tell he's a student of the game. He's very thought out, but just I don't know what it is. Um, you know, it just doesn't seem like he just doesn't move the needle. Like, man, when he was coming up, there was nothing like. And then the way that everybody ducked him when there was in the middle of this win streak that he's on, there was just he was fucking scary. He was fucking scary. Like, it was crazy.
yeah, he was still training with Black Zillions in his first fight with Leon Edwards. So big change in coaching staff from then too, and that's another thing that I think will be a big difference maker too, because Leon Edwards is still with the same team that he's been with, as far as I know. I mean, I could be mistaken on that. I'm not as like intimately knowledgeable about his training partners or who he trains with, but yeah, Kamaru Usman has the dream team behind him, and I think I don't even really have to ask who we're picking. We're both picking Kamaru Usman here, huh?
He's gone through ATT camps. He's gone through Trevor Whitman camps. Championship. He's gone through championship level camps. I think a lot of people don't give credence or don't put as much weight onto like just how much of a difference that is getting ready for a fight and getting a full Trevor Whitman experience in a fight camp for a championship defense. Like, you're getting everything, and then Trevor Whitman's just bringing it. You're going through ATT, and they're just bringing it, giving you everything they have to make you better. So he's downloaded those files into his head. He's gone through all of that. So and he's just violent and one of the best athletes in the sport. So what can you say?
Yeah, he's been in a room with legit killers who, yeah, if there's ever a room to put a gauntlet together in training with, it's that room in ATT for sure.
Right.
So I think this would be a good time to transition to our co-main event of the evening. This is a fun fight on paper, I guess. This is a fun fight. I would have expected that we'd be getting more media coverage on, just in terms of like how these guys are going to grab headlines and just the wackiness to it. Because anytime you have Paulo Costa involved, you just figure that everything's going to be meme-worthy leading up to a fight. But I've actually seen more coming from Luke Rockhold, and not even necessarily directed at Paulo Costa, but when Luke Rockhold,
everyone else,
at everyone else. Yeah, when Luke Rockhold gets indignant with Dana White or the UFC specifically, I got to give credit to him. He doesn't hold back. I always thought it was pretty funny because he's so awkward. Like we've seen all the clips of him just like struggling to come up with the words, and not in a way that, like Tito, but yeah, like you said, this is a guy who's known that he's been fucking A1 attractive since early on, and he's definitely relied on that. So he doesn't have a lot going on when he opens his mouth. He says a lot of cringy shit, but that awkwardness completely goes away when he's fed up with the UFC and shooting on Dana, because there's been times in the past where he's literally tweeted like at Dana to shut the fuck up, and like not too far removed from the time when Dana would just cut your fucking ass for even disrespecting, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think that whole dynamic with Luke Rockhold suddenly becoming and brazen and bold with the UFC, I've always found it fascinating. But he finds himself he's going to be locking horns with Paulo Costa, the Secret Juices. Paulo Costa, a big-time joker to his own right, kind of becoming Vicky like Martin. That mean, Paulo Costa, I believe, is the only guy who's still with Waleed Ismail, because a lot of Waleed's fighters have left him and gone other places. Davison Figueiredo, notably. I forgot what female fighter he was working with who also left him. Either way, we could talk a lot. I think there's a lot more to talk about as far as like the kind of ways that this fight could be marketed, and both guys could be using social media to kind of market this fight. But for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to be there, or it's not making it onto my feed.
Yeah.
But what do you think about the matchup inside of the cage? Paulo Costa versus a bit of the old guard and Luke Rockhold.
Paulo Costa's going to kick the shit out of Luke Rockhold.
Uh-huh.
He's going to kick the living shit out of him.
He's
going to hurt Paulo. He's going to hurt Luke Rockhold to the body. Luke Rockhold better be ready for some body fucking shots, dude.
We have some parity because I think Luke Rockhold takes this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in Paulo Costa. I think Paulo Costa obviously is a guy that has all the physical tools, but anytime I see anything from him training, and maybe he's smart about not putting like footage of his training up online for people to see, but I just only ever see him hitting pads or hitting the bag. Like I really wonder what kind of work Paulo Costa is getting in the ring. I've never seen him grappling at all, and I think that's going to be something that could be very problematic if Luke Rockhold gets him on the ground, because Luke Rockhold has really underrated top game. Obviously, he's got the power to hurt Luke Rockhold. We saw Luke Rockhold get knocked out by Michael Bisping. And we've seen Luke Rockhold get knocked out by a lot of other guys, but they're guys who kind of should knock you out if they touch you. You know what I mean? He's gotten knocked out by Jan Blachowicz, Yoel Romero, Vitor Belfort. So none of those are really surprising me. The Michael Bisping knockout is the one that kind of like worries me a little bit more going into this fight. But I think he's a lot better of a striker than Paulo Costa. Like I don't have Paulo Costa very, very high in terms of striking. I think he's a guy who's kind of gotten by on his power, and it's becoming less and less of a division where you can do that. So I'm picking Luke Rockhold for the upset here. And I think it's exciting to me because we don't get a lot of parity. We always tend to kind of like pick very similar. So yeah, put that in your pipe and smoke it, Brandon.
Okay, I'll do it like I did with the Leon Edwards fight. I'll do it like I did with the Jeff Neal fight, most recent one. If we're gonna go back to the tape, we can go back to that one. I just think Paulo Costa's kind of that. When you get boned out by a closeted homosexual man on a UFC pay-per-view card, and you just get that, just kind of sticks with you, and I think he's really going to fucking come out, and he's mad. He's very mad. He's and on his way up to the Israel Adesanya fight, he looked amazing. I'm not sure if people didn't. This guy can fucking put you out, and then his kicks, his body kicks are fucking wild. So, and he has very good timing. You mentioned his power, and power's great, but power without timing, expert timing, kind of understanding like the little nuances within a fight, the flowing, kind of getting into the back and forth, knowing when to unleash that's a skill in of itself. So you can be as strong as you fucking want to be, but if you can't time it the right way, you can't do things to like really emphasize that power, then there's nothing behind it. So Adesanya really fucking embarrassed him. I think that's a lot of what we're seeing now.
He had no way to get on the inside with Adesanya at all.
Right. And I just don't. I think he's just levels above Luke Rockhold to me. Luke Rockhold's amazing. What an amazing grappler. Old school Strike Force fucking. Those guys are legendary, but Strike Force was a long fucking time ago. And to get knocked out like that by Michael Bisping, Michael Bisping didn't expect to knock him out.
I think the only thing that really gives me a lot of pause in this fight, or where I think things might work out a little bit better, just barely for Paulo Costa, is the inactivity of Luke Rockhold, though. That's definitely something to be concerned about, because he hasn't fought in a cage since Jan Blachowicz knocked him out in 2019. So he's been on the shelf for a while. And to be fair, Paulo Costa hasn't been the busiest fighter ever. He hasn't fought since he faced Marvin Vettori in October of last year. Before that, Paulo Costa has fought once a year since 2017. 2017 he fought 3 times, but 2018 he fought once against Uriah Hall. In 2019 he fought once against Yoel Romero. 2020 he fought against Israel Adesanya, and then in 2021 Marvin Vettori. So not exactly a super active guy either. I think that inactivity probably hurts him just as much as Luke Rockhold's inactivity probably hurts Luke. Luke needed that time off because he had been straight up colded by Yoel Romero and Jan Blachowicz. So it was definitely a time where it's like, all right, it's time to go back to the fucking drawing board and figure out how you're going to preserve that chin, because he'd also been knocked out by by Michael Bisping leading up to that. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's certainly a dangerous fight for Rockhold. It's not like going to be a walk in the park. I'm not expecting him to dominate Paulo Costa, and it's a fight that I think he's probably going to have to win by decision too. Because for as much as I want to bag on Paulo Costa, because I don't really think he's a very good fighter, he's at the very least durable. Like you need to be a surgeon to put him away, and like we saw that with Israel Adesanya. Like that's one of the only guys to actually finish him. But I don't know. I saw this trouble that he had coming up short against Marvin Vettori, and I just fail to picture Luke Rockhold not being able to kind of like emulate that success. But we'll see. That's why they fight him.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's all. You make fair points. Like I can't say I just strongly disagree with you. I just think I just feel like Paulo Costa is a much better fighter than maybe he gets credit for, and he's just had some embarrassing moments, but he's had a real embarrassing moment. Luke Rockhold's been embarrassed, like quite. I mean, I just don't know.
He's had the worst losses of the two guys for sure.
Yeah, it's just like
undeniably.
I don't know. And like what I guess when you were talking about like on like the media coverage or like what the leading up to it, when I hear Luke Rockhold talk about this fight, I see someone who is trying to convince himself that he belongs here. He's trying to convince himself like, I do deserve this. I should be fighting here. I am Luke Rockhold. Remember that. I am a champion. I am this. I am that. And
he probably is
kind of talk like
having to.
Yeah. So it's not always great when you get you're hyping yourself up for it. So
he hasn't tasted victory since 2017. So if he has to convince himself, like I know I do belong here. Like I am good. Like I think that's totally normal. Like for most people, like shit, after one loss in this sport, you would have to fucking like really do some soul searching. So I think mentally, Paulo Costa probably has. You made me realize something there too, and I'll concede to that. Paulo Costa mentally probably has the edge going into this fight. Yeah. And Mike will laugh at this if he ever actually listens to the show. I kind of doubt that he does, but I've said before, like there are certain fighters, kind of like I use Platinum Perry as an example, who are too dumb to win the mental battle over. Like you're never
self-aware. Yeah, completely unself-aware.
He's too much of a bonehead to like lose to intimidation or something like Right. So there's that going for him. Where I don't think Paulo Costa has ever gotten into any cage where he didn't believe he was going to obliterate the man across from him, like no doubts whatsoever. So that's an interesting angle to look at there.
The subconscious portion of that, where it is like the subconscious mind is so insanely strong, and it just guides everything that we do on a daily basis. And his subconscious mind, you can just see it behind his eyes that like he just does not see, even if he was coming off a 10 loss streak, he just would not see it. He just wouldn't believe it, which is great. I mean, if you're going to fight in a cage for a living, to be that oblivious to things is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. And it would be amazing to not have to worry about that either. Like there are some deficiencies fighters have that they need to spend a lot of time in the gym to improve on, and some of it is physical, some of it is like, this is never going to come natural to you, bud, so you really need to work on this in the gym. That mental battle, some guys, there's no path towards working on that. That's just a thing that they're always going to have to deal with. And if you have the fortune of being too dumb to lose the mental battle, then it's just, boom, it's like you walked in with that feather in your cap already. So, but let's move on to the showcase fight of the evening, and for many, this is worthy of main event status. Jose Aldo, Merab Dvalishvili, 135 pounds, 3 rounds. We have I've talked.
This is my main event. This is my main event. Right?
This is my main event too. We've talked about the meta of this sport and how, like, it's ruthless, it's unforgiving, and the young eat the old in this sport. And I've criticized that sometimes because of the way that matchmaking is handled in the UFC. But this is kind of the way to do it. If you're a total fanboy of Aldo, like me and like you know, I'll just go ahead and lump you in there too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This feels like, dude, why are we punishing Aldo? Like, he's doing this greatness at the, like, in the twilight of his career, still going on another like title run, and a weight class that's lighter from where he had been dominant for so long. It's super impressive. As much as we want to just be like total fanboys, I can't say that either of us ever would have predicted that he would be here. Like, when I was told that he would be going down to bantamweight, I thought, like, that's not good. And his first bantamweight cut looked rough too. Like, he looked like a skeleton. Like, I thought it was. Yeah. And then there's always been that narrative for a long time when he was at featherweight that eventually he'd be going up to lightweight. So to hear, you know, so yeah, all I'm saying is with the benefit of hindsight, it's crazy that he's here, and it feels a little bit like punishment that he's fighting Merab Dvalishvili. But I think that this is a good example of how the young eat the old in this sport. And I'm not guaranteed that any old is going to be eaten here, but I think that this is a fight where I don't know, it just doesn't feel like you're taking out the trash, or this doesn't feel like they're serving Jose Aldo up as a stepping stone for Merab. And this is title fight implications for both guys here, and not just for one guy, which I think is a much more important factor of it, because a lot of times when you see someone 1 or 2 generations past their prime, like Jose Aldo, and you see him get matched up like this, it's because a lot of times the promoter, or I'm assuming Dana White, is probably saying, okay, look, if Merab gets past him, he's getting the title shot. If Aldo gets past him, well, fucking good job, and we'll figure out something else, and he's not necessarily getting a title shot. Not the case here. Aldo is knocking on the door, and I think it would be criminal to not give him a title shot if he gets the win over Merab here, but that's a big if, and I want to know, what do you feel like, before I kind of give my thoughts? Do you feel like this is a winnable fight for Jose Aldo, or
yes,
is Merab too much of a threat?
I'll just say yes. I'll say the one thing that gives me pause is for Merab's base, for what, you know, we know what he's gonna. There's not a secret. There's no, like, what is he gonna do? I mean, there's none of that for anyone. I would hope, you know, if you're watching, you're getting this pay-per-view to watch this fight, you kind of know what's going to, more or less, what Merab's going to try and do. And the thing that really kind of like gives me any doubt that Jose Aldo could win this fight is that his camp, they're just so singularly focused on, if you do one thing right, just fucking do it until you fucking win. Like, they're not going to get cute. Merab Dvalishvili is not going to do anything cute. Where Jose Aldo kind of can catch people when they're trying to be cute, and they're trying to do things that are outside of what they think I just need to be doing this right now, so I'm going to do it. Where Merab's he's singularly focused. Aldo knows he knows what I'm gonna do. I know what I'm gonna do. Can he fucking stop it? Probably fucking not. So that's the one thing that really kind of, it's like that same feeling that we had with Dom Cruz, when he got hit and you just kind of knew. I think we'll see with the first takedown and how Aldo can get out of that, or his body language after he gets taken down and when he's in guard, because he's going to be in guard at some point. And so how he reacts to that is really going to tell me all I need to know.
Yeah, it's a tough one because I haven't seen Merab fade. And that's something I think is going to be important for Aldo, because I mean, luckily for him, this fight is only 5 rounds.
Or 3, yeah.
Yeah, excuse me, for 3 rounds. Yeah, thank you.
Right. No.
Because lucky for Merab, I would say, because I kind of feel like Aldo. I can't shake the image of Aldo getting pounded out by Peter Yan on the ground. I can't shake the image of him getting controlled and pounded on by Volkanovski on the ground at featherweight. Like, he's been in that position before, and I think it's a bad position, but a lot of the fight rests on his ability to keep the fight from getting there and not letting the fight get there when he's gassed. So I think like Merab's ability to take Aldo down in the later rounds, in the 3rd round specifically, is going to make that much more of a difference, because I think like you said, like, if it's going to depend on how easily he gets it there and is able to keep him there early on. But that dynamic changes when Aldo is trying to conserve his energy more. And that's another thing too, is like, so much more used to seeing Aldo in 5-round action, just because he's Aldo. Like, he's lived to fight 5 rounds for so long now, that I'm not as intimately aware of if Aldo is the type of guy to empty the gas tank because he's only fighting 3 rounds. And it's like, dude, you don't have to conserve yourself. Go out there and be a little bit more of a berserker. Or if he's looking at Merab as a guy like, okay, I do have to kind of like conserve that energy a little bit, because if he gets me down, I have to explode. I have to create a scramble. I need to get back up. A lot has been made about Jose Aldo's grappling credentials, like since the WEC. Like, we'd always heard about this mystical like grappling prowess of Jose Aldo, where it's like he'd been straight up like lamping dudes on the feet, and everyone kept saying, well, he's actually better at grappling than striking, but he doesn't have to use it. He's that much of a good striker. Like, he literally has never had to use it. And I mean, it doesn't look like anyone was lying to us, certainly. But his grappling is mostly always seemingly been there for defensive reasons. He's also a guy who's gotten away from his leg kicks, which I think could be beneficial, but I'm not as sure about this fight for the same reason. It's only being 3 rounds. Like, how much money is Jose Aldo going to put in the bank with leg kicks from Merab Dvalishvili versus like, okay, I want to start laying the leg kicks on early so that by rounds 4 and 5 he doesn't have that explosive capability to get the fight to the ground. Kind of feel like I'm talking in circles here. I'm a little bit afraid for this fight. I want to pick Jose Aldo, but it's hard to not picture Merab eking out two rounds by control, getting the takedown and just keeping Aldo down. I think Aldo has difference-making power. Like, the name of this episode should be difference-making power. But I've also seen but I've also seen Merab get hit with stuff that I thought was going to be an issue. Like Marlon Moraes, I remember, hit him really, really hard.
Yes.
It seems to just unlock a next level for Merab Dvalishvili. Like, he literally turns into a berserker. I think this fight has the potential to turn into a real scrap on the feet, because the more you hit Merab, the more he turns into the Tasmanian devil. And I think that if that's how the fight plays out, then it would probably be to Jose Aldo's benefit, because he could be a little bit more of a counter striker. So I think if I'm Aldo's team, I want him to touch Merab early and often and get his head off of the game plan and get him to fight a little bit more wild, and hopefully keep the fight standing. And tire him out so that he doesn't have as much capability to get the fight to the ground later in the rounds. But how do you see this going, man? I should give you a chance to talk. Let me know what you think.
I just think how Aldo controls Merab's level changes, like how when he goes for the takedown or he feints to it, what Jose puts on his mind, where like, you can do it, but you're gonna have to go through this. And what he chooses, whether it's with his knees or whether he decides to leg kick like we know he can, whether it's just going straight to the body, which Aldo could do as well, which I think would probably be the best thing to do for Jose to kind of to really punch to the body and do it, because that really, you can see grapplers kind of just shut down when they get hit into the body, and they just don't want to have to deal with that. And so he's got all of that in his arsenal, which is super promising. So we're just going to have to see how he decides to control those level changes. To me, is what's ultimately going to, and hopefully, I want to see knees. I just want to see Jose Aldo really use his knees. Like, come, put your head down there. Put your head down there. Yeah. Just go right ahead and do that. I want to. That's what I want to see. I want to see a fucking Merab kind of go there. Like you said, Berserker, he kind of loses his mind for a second, goes, oh, fuck, okay, I can't wrestle. And then, boom, there's a knee when he just wasn't thinking like, oh, shit, this guy throws some fucking world-class fucking knees. So I'm hoping it's some type of knee. It ends it with a crazy-ass athletic knee.
Yeah. Merab has 4 losses, none by way of KO or TKO. He only has 1 submission loss and 3 decision losses. So if Aldo can pull off a finish in this fight, be the first man to put Merab away, that would be a real that would be a real statement, and further like make him undeniable for a title shot. It'd be really impressive.
I'm going to take Aldo by decision, but my heart is saying that. I would not bet money on that. But my heart is saying that, and I'm hoping that in some of those early exchanges when Merab does change levels, Jose gets him with a knee or a liver punch or something to remind him, like, don't get too fucking close to me. It could go bad for you.
I gotta ask, and I know you're picking Aldo here, but should it not go his way, and if Merab ends up getting his hand raised, what do you think that would mean for Jose Aldo moving forward? Do you think this is probably around the time when he would maybe be calling it a career if he gets a loss at this point, or
I think
he sticks around? Do you think it depends on the way he would lose?
I agree with what you're saying. Is it kind of does feel like punishment, but I feel like it's also a good thing, because like there are a few matchups that are kind of similar to Merab in this division, where if Jose lost, then it would be like, okay, now retire. Whereas this one is like, if he loses, well, you lost to Merab Dvalishvili, who's on his way up to a title shot. Like, so it's not that bad,
I am going to go on the record and pick Merab. I don't want to. I'm going to be rooting for Aldo. But I do really think that Merab is kind of the future of this division, among other guys. I shouldn't even when I say that kind of makes it sound like I'm discounting the rest of the division, and I'm not, because bantamweight is so deep.
Right.
But I'm pretty firmly on the Merab bandwagon, and this is one I've really thrown around in my head a lot. Would not surprise me to see Aldo rise up and get the win still, and kind of continue on this like late career veteran streak, and hopefully get that title shot. I was really disappointed when he got passed up for the title shot, and that ended up going to TJ Dillashaw instead. So either way, a win for either guy is a win for me in my book, because this is just such a high level fight. Like, the winners are the audience for sure. This is like the fight I would tell anybody do not miss. And the next fight I would tell anybody to not miss is Marcin Tybura versus Alexander Romanov. No, I'm just kidding. I don't miss it, because it should be a short fight. I don't see this going very long. But I don't. Yeah, you gave your pick for Aldo. I gave my pick for Merab. Seems like there's no better time to transition. Although I don't think we have much time to spend for the rest of the card. But let's kind of touch on that. Alexander Romanov is 16-0 Moldovan heavyweight, who we've been ball washing the Moldovan fighters for a little bit now. Spivak also rising in division, up against the Polish Marcin Tybura, who's 22-7. I don't really have a whole lot of a breakdown other than say that Romanov is going to take him down and destroy him and submit him. I'll say that. But
no, it's just exciting to watch. Just to watch it, it's going to be a good one it's the one fight that I'd be mad if I miss it. Just like this, it's just a cool. It's a palate cleanser of MMA watching those Moldovan guys fight. There's just something about their the way they do it down there. It just really, it's different than what we see. And it's even more different than the Caucasus Mountains type of fighters that you
Yes.
would know.
Mhm.
It's a different. There's just a different spice. It's like you eat Mediterranean food. You could be eating Armenian food. You could be eating fucking Greek. You could be eating, but it all kind of like looks the same on the plate, but it fucking tastes different. And this is that type of deal for me.
Yeah, let's compare cage fighting to foods of the world. I get it though. Yeah, and I do think that there is something different about it. And I think just like,
you know what I'm saying, it looks the same on the menu. It's like kebab.
mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, there's the different types of kebab though. The spice is different.
There's a real scariness to it though when you see a guy with that stature, with that ability to control you and just shut you down on the ground and strangle you. There's like, because you'd always imagine if you ever found yourself like in a fight with this kind of guy, you always have the option to run until he puts his hands on you, and then that option, it goes away. And it's different from what we're used to seeing.
His grip strength is wild. It is so wild when he has his hands on, and then he has gloves on and his hands are taped, but it seems like he has full like dexterity, and he's just holding you, and then you feel. And what's crazy is I've seen that when you watch this guy fight, he gets them on the ground, and then the hips are pinned to the ground, but they're pushing off, and they just can't get any upward momentum when they're down on the ground. It's just like that, like they're in like they have some type of like foreign substance or alien substance that is holding them down, or they're just in a gravity chamber and they just cannot get up. And it's so weird to see that. And like you said, like a horror movie where the guy's just I don't know who is it? Is it Michael Myers, where he's just there, like you think you're getting away, then you kind of trip, and then he's like, whoa, what the fuck? And then he's just same speed. You see him doing it, but when he's there, you're just not getting away.
Yeah, and going back to what we mentioned about him being undefeated, also too, it's like that means if you're his opponent and you've never seen the guy get knocked out, you've never seen him get finished, you don't know, like you'd have to go into this fight with that unearned confidence that you can be the guy to turn it around and potentially put this guy away. And I do mean put him away because you also, like, if you look at his win methods, he's a guy who's writing. He's only won by decision once. So he has 5 KOs and TKOs and 10 submissions in his record. So he's not a guy who's going to let you like see the end of a fight. Very, very rarely, which makes him, he's just remarkable. This is must-see TV.
And what's crazy, the craziest thing about these guys too is we haven't seen their best either. So like I feel like when we see an American fighter who's like a Kamaru Usman, we've seen his best. We know what Kamaru Usman's best looks like. We've seen it. We've seen it in competition, whether that's wrestling, MMA, whatever it is, we've seen it. I guarantee you we have not. Like Romonov has done some wild shit to someone somewhere that just will put fucking black on your heart if you saw him do it. You know what I'm saying?
You'll have to consult a therapist just by being a witness.
Some faces of death shit that this guy has done in a competition, and then the room just was just musky. It smelled like old wood. It was gray, and it was just the weather outside was gross, and it was just black, and like everybody just left and just but didn't cry because they didn't care.
No.
The guy has done some wild shit, like atrocities, and his eyes, when you see him in a fight and you see it's just crazy. He just looks like atrocity. He's a walking atrocity.
The parents of Alexander Romanov's opponents get up and clap for Alexander Romanov.
Oh my god,
when he's doing his thing. And like you said too, like we haven't even seen his best or their best. Which I know what you meant. Like you probably meant that personally for Alexander Romanov himself. Like we haven't seen his true best, but it also kind of like makes me imagine that there's this scarier Moldovan fighter like on the horizon who we haven't seen make the jump over.
That's exactly what I meant.
That's what you meant. Yeah. So kind of like what Ruslan Khabilov was for like Khabib and the other guys like back in the day before Khabib really arrived. You had like Ruslan hitting dudes with the Chris Benoit, like the 3 German suplexes in a row, and they're like, what the fuck?
And then the guys that he's here in the UFC and he's done what he's done. the guys that we haven't seen him fight will never, like, again, Kamaru Usman, we've seen him fight Colby Covington, beat the shit out of Colby Covington.
Yeah.
See him beat Jose Masvidal. We've seen all of those other fights that those guys have been in, so we kind of have a gauge for what you just know what's going on with Kamaru Usman. You just know it. You've seen, and it's amazing, and it's top level. The difference between Romanov is the guys that he's beaten, they were probably a lot better than we're giving credit for, and a lot wilder in the head. And he's probably beaten legit sociopath murders. He's probably beat someone that's murdered someone else.
I'm looking.
I would bet. The names, dude. Give me the names, sir. It sounds triple barreled. They're in Siberia. One of them's in a Siberian prison right now, and he just beat the brakes off of it.
Here's one of the guys with a better record that he's fought is an Uzbekistan fighter by the name of Alexander Saint Stolyarov, who with a record of 26-7, currently on a 4-fight win streak.
The guy has 6 passports.
He has 6 passports.
They're all different names. He has 6 different identities.
I want to show you. Oh, you will be able to see it. I can totally drop this in the chat. You got to see this guy's fucking picture, though, dude.
Dude, that's what I'm saying, dude. It's just grizzled. The men that this guy's fought, dude.
There, it should pop up in the chat on the side. This guy looks like he's never seen his mother ever.
Yeah, dude. That guy wakes up to fucking that guy wakes up to straight fucking crazy ass AK-47 fucking sounds. That guy gets ready for church, and there's just Chechenian war crimes going off behind him.
Congratulations, Alexander Stolyarov. You might just be the outro image of this episode, because you are just you're just a fucking trophy. Look at you, dude.
That man, these guys, there's masculine, and then there is this, dude. This is toxic masculinity does not exist. It is not a thought. There is no wokeness. There's no, like, Kamaru Usman's gonna say something about, wage gap, or
right.
You guys are disrespecting Rosnama Yunus because of one bad thing, and she's a girl boss. And these guys have, like, there is no translation.
I don't
for
need
girl boss.
Any reason to disrespect Rosnama Yunus. I'll do it because it's right.
I had to give it to you before we left, dude. I had to give it to you.
You had to fuck Islan alley-oop. Thank you for that. It was good.
No, but I'm just saying, like, because that's the thing that's so scary is the guys that he's fought on the way up, or like the guys that he's cut his teeth on, are fucking war criminals, dude. They're fucking arms dealers. They're fucking. They run wild ass fucking gangs of. They've killed countless Albanians.
Yeah.
How many Albanians are dead because of the guys that Romonov has beat?
When Ramzan Kadyrov sends this guy a text message, it doesn't just come up as a random number. Like, he's in his phone. He's saved in his phone. He's Katie in his phone.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Oh man.
All right, let's wrap.
No, I mean, but seriously though, am I wrong, dude? It sounds wild. Whoever, God bless you if you're this far into the episode. This is probably, like, if I have any type of podcasting chops, I'm showing it off right now. The dank smell of gymnasium that these guys have fought in, the cold, the food that they ate all week long into the fight, the food that they ate after to celebrate was shitty, the fucking car they drove there to. Life is just so hard for these guys.
The shirts that we sent to their part of the world with the wrong Super Bowl winning teams, they burned those shirts for heat where this guy lives. Yeah. Yes, dude. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and
women cannot drive
into this episode. You're probably not having a great time if you're a woman from Alexander Romanov's part of the world. That's sadly that is true. But yeah, we'll go ahead and cap it there, because there's not a whole ton else. We're pretty much out of time too. So that's another thing I had to be mindful of, is that when we're going to anyone listening this late into the episode, like Brandon said, God bless you. Thank you for being here. We are going to or looking to start putting our episode, our audio only podcast on up on iTunes Spotify, so that everybody can listen to it somewhere other than YouTube. But we do have to start being a little bit disciplined about how long we let our episodes go.
Yeah.
So it'll still be a little while before that happens, but very, very soon, much around the corner, closer than you think. But until then, still like, subscribe, comment, make love to the bell so that you get all of our episodes moving forward and you get a nice little reminder, or don't, but more than anything else, please subscribe. I think we are at 16 subscribers on YouTube right now, and I would love to see that number grow. So if you know Brandon or myself, or even if you don't, and you just like the cut of our jib when we're breaking down these fights, then I implore you to please subscribe on YouTube. Other than that, I don't have anything else left to say. Brandon, if you got anything else?
Nope. But please use that message as the outro. That guy looks like me and you had a kid, dude. That guy's our son, dude.
All right, man. Have a good night, everybody. Take care.